The integration between Asker and Teamtailor is very easy to use. When setting up a new job, head over to Stages, and from here we want to set up the trigger. You only need to set up the trigger for the first interview stage that you know that you'll be using Asker. That trigger will be able to use for the consecutive interviews that you have. So in this case, we have two interviews, and we're only going to set it up for the first. And we do this by pressing Stage Actions, Triggers, and then Conduct Asker Interview. From here, we decide which template we want to use. If you want to create new templates, you can simply do that by logging into Asker and creating a template. All of those will be uploaded to your account here. In this case, we're going to use the sales development representative role, and we're going to call it SDR for short in this case. So that is the product name that will show up in Asker. Next, we need to decide if you want to show salary in the interview report. So by clicking this one, we enable that. So when you're done with an interview, we ask about salary. The salary will show up in the report. Lastly, we choose language. That's all we need to do when setting up the trigger. Now we're going to show you how it looks like when sending it out and how to start an interview. So here we have a candidate, and what you do is you simply drag the candidate to the step where you know you have the trigger, and we can see that here that we have a trigger. You can also activate a trigger from this stage. So if you already created a job and you want to add a trigger, you can do that, of course, by pressing the wand here, triggers, add trigger, and do the same things we did previously. If we click on the candidate, we see now that we have a new window that pops up saying Asker. And from here, we can see the status of the interview that we haven't started, is still pending. If it's complete, it will say complete. And then we have what interview it is, so it's the first one, and an action to start the interview. When you press Start Interview, you have two options. Either you log in and continue as an Asker user. So if you have an account, that's a very easy way to get access to the interview. So in this case, we see that I already had a logged in session with this account, Demo Alex. And of course, if you're not logged in, you will get a prompt to log in. But we also want to enable users that don't have an Asker account to still be able to conduct interviews via Teamtailor. And then we have added the Continue as Guest function. What you need to do then is simply press that one, and then you add the email and name. And if you do that, you're going to get an email sent to you with a login that gives you access to the interview. As you can see here, we've added Alex at askertech.com as a guest interviewer, and there will be a link sent to Alex's email where he can access the interview from that stage. When you start the interview, it will be just exactly like you used to. It will look exactly the same, and you will be able to do all the necessary things that you usually do. You can add your notes, and you can score the interview. You can, of course, come back to the interview after you're done. So when you press Complete Interview, you're redirected back straight to Teamtailor, and from here we can view the details from the report. So we have two questions about motivation. We can see that. We have a few new functions that's up here. We can forward the candidate, talk a bit more about that later. We can access the interview report. We can also go back and edit the interview. So if we want to maybe score the interview after we completed the interview, or we want to go back and change something, we can easily do that. If we press on the interview report, this is where we get to. So we get an overview of the interview. So we can see the score, we can show details, we can see who scored what, we can see the notes. In this case, not very necessary, but you can see the notes, and you can do that. And you can, of course, head back to Teamtailor. In this case, we had two interviews, and we decided that we wanted to move on with this candidate. Then we can simply drag them to the next interview stage. We can open up the candidate again, and we can forward the candidate. When we press forward the candidate, they are moved on to the next interview. So if we update this candidate, we can see now that we have access to the second interview. So now the forward function has disappeared because we already forwarded the candidate, and now we can start interviewing for the second interview. And it's the same procedure as last time. When we press start interview, we get the option to either log in as a Asker user or log in as a guest. You only need to verify your email the first time you do the guest user flow, and then you will be able to continue using that account for about up to 14 days. And that's all you need to do in order to get started with how to use Asker in Teamtailor. Good luck!